episode of the Prudent Podcast, where we equip and empower authors, writers, and purpose driven individuals on their journey. I am so happy to be back to be doing episodes and just hearing from the literary community. Again, I'm your host, Tanicia Prioleau, and today we have a very special guest joining us. We are honored to welcome Miss Buckingham. She is an incredible author who is here to share her journey with us, her inspiration, and the message behind her book. Miss Buckingham, I want to welcome you to the show. Yay!
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yay, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Tanisha. It has been such a pleasure working with you, and I've been so excited with meeting you today for today's podcast.
Yes, so exciting. So let's start by allowing our audience to get to know you a little better. Can you introduce yourself and share a little about your background and what led you into writing?
Yes, actually, I am born and raised in upstate New York, and I have lived in Georgia in the McDonough Stockbridge area for the past 20 years. So I consider myself, I think I'm a peach now. So
Yeah, you
that's where it all started. I come from a blended family with lots of love and nurturing, respect. And I am the oldest child out of five. And so that initiated that aspect of wanting to be a leader and just, overseeing things, being the big sister manager. And with that, once I transitioned to Georgia, I started out with corporate and then transitioned out into most recently as an entrepreneur slash also, still in the business of healthcare administration with another company as well. So I'm excited about that, which is a new transition. I have two children, and I also have four grandchildren. So
Wow.
it keeps me busy, but at the same time, it's a blessing, and that's pretty much my background.
That's really good. I mean, even a blessing, like you said, having the four grandchildren, your children definitely know that they are happy also, right? Just about your journey and even your accomplishments. Um, when it comes to writing, was this something that's always been a passion for you?
Well, yes. Even in as I transitioned into high school, it became more of a passion where I started taking the advanced English and just I've enjoyed writing and reading. So hand in hand. And with
Hmm.
that, I transitioned into college, and by way of the writing, that kind of sparked me as well. So I took advanced classes in college as well. And
Wow.
so with that being said, that kind of sparked everything for the future. It kind of like I want to say like kind of spearheaded me into the future when it came to writing. Let's see. Now, when I actually started writing my book, the first initial book, it was an anthology project, and that was in
Okay.
2021. So that's where the author aspect of it began, and I had my part in the writing with a chapter. The book is called "Stand Up: Resilient Black Women Who Are Shaping the World with Their Faith."
Hmm.
Okay, and then my chapter is it's holding on. It's titled "Holding On to God's Hand Through the Storm: Walking into His Will with Faith." So this
Praise
is the
God.
book. Yeah, powerful book, powerful testimony. So this was my actual first writing piece.
Mm. And
Yes.
I do tell a lot of people whenever they're first, when it's your first time writing, an anthology is a good place to start. I had a good publishing coach, mentor, and so that's one of the things that she always said, and that's actually how she started as well, is through an anthology. And then of course she went on to write more books and publish books for others, but that's a good start. So
It-
where can they find the book that you just had up, this anthology?
yes. Did you ask? I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. Where can
This
they
one.
find the book at your anthology?
Actually, it can be found in on my website. As individual authors, we all, promote and market on our own.
Mhm.
And that's Change Your Lanes Enterprise with a Z in enterprise. And it can be located on my website and ordered that way.
Okay, good. And
Yeah.
so, with you writing, did you ever take, and you probably shared it, any creative writing classes, when you were in college or in high school?
Actually, I did. I took, since I had writing as a passion and actually as a minor, I started as a minor and I enjoyed writing. I actually
Mhm.
was a student for, her name is Miss Polite. I remember her name. And one day she was out of class. She didn't show up, and she's always there every week. And when she returned the following week, she said that she was supporting her cousin, Toni Morrison, and I didn't know
Oh,
Toni Morrison was her cousin, and
yeah,
she won the Nobel Prize. And so that to me just kind of like just put me in awe. Like I am learning from the best.
the best. I mean, definitely,
Yes.
And
Hmm.
wow, I mean, it's, when it comes to creative writing, I've had some editors that I work with and they're educators as well. And that's one of the things they do harp on is being able, right, to take those creative writing classes and learn the different styles of writing. So,
Yes.
that's really good. Like you said, you learn from the best. So when it
Yes.
comes to your book, your new recent release book, right? What inspired you to write your book, and what message do you hope readers take away from it?
Okay, actually, with the inspiration initially, came from the first anthology project with Stand Up. That put the
Hmm.
spark in me. And
Yeah.
so it's been about maybe 3 to 4 years now since Stand Up was released.
Hmm.
But one day while I was talking to one of my friends, one of my heavy discerning friends, and she spoke to me and she said that God said, "You're going to write a book." And then
Mm.
she not only told me that, she also told me that the name of the book was going to be Changing Lanes. So that was nobody but God. So that was what inspired me.
What
God,
inspired you? Yeah,
yes, marching orders. And, when God says we're going to do something, we're going to do it. And so,
that's right.
yeah, so the title of the book, which he named it, Changing Lanes. And I added that part because of the transition I had went through during that time of
Hmm.
transitioning out of corporate through a layoff after, oh gosh, almost 20 years. I
Wow.
added with God as my CEO because he is the CEO. My corporate CEO isn't the CEO of my life, but God is the CEO of my life.
I
So
really
changing
like
lanes
that.
with God as my CEO.
And Nikki, just thinking about it, that within the last year, a lot of people were either thrust, into that place where they needed to transition from corporate, right,
Right.
to more of the entrepreneurship. And then there were some people that were kind of building that journey. I know that's one thing you and I have in common. That I was laid off, right, from my corporate job last year. And thankfully, I had been building my businesses, but then there were some people that had to make that lane switch, like what you're saying, um, unexpectedly laid off, right? And needing to pivot, so to speak. So can you share a little bit like from your journey about that and, just the kind of thoughts or anything for others that may have gone through that?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, there was a high level of impact with that
Mhm.
last year transition for a lot of people, and so with that transitioning is first, you just know that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
So I knew that this was something that was led by God. Sometimes we think it's the worst thing, but it's really a transition in the direction God wants us to be in. So I had to turn it around in my mind and spirit and look at it as something positive in what God has called me to do. So I knew I had to focus on the book
Hmm.
because that was one of the first things that I was informed about. And the second thing was setting up, using the skills I've learned all these years, using the education of having a master's in healthcare administration and a bachelor's in political science, using those talents and tools and skills for myself. So
That's right.
changing, yes. Changing Lanes enterprise came about months later after that, where, I would set up contracts to help others that's in that field of contractual negotiations and managed care, and also, um, coaching and also doing workshops that centers around expertise in negotiating contracts in the
Mm.
healthcare industry. So, you know, what we do, what is that saying? You make flowers out of,
Yep.
there's a term where you turn the negative into something positive. So
Yeah. And what's
that's
good is that, like you said, something that seems negative, you turned it into something positive, and I'm sure you've been able to help plenty of people, with the contract negotiation and just through you changing lanes, so to speak,
mhm,
making God your CEO, and now you've been able to pour back into other people. So that's a blessing.
absolutely, yes.
Wow. So when you wrote your book, who did you have in mind, while writing this? Is there a specific audience or, target audience of people that you had in mind while writing?
Well, for the most part, people that were more so like me, and when it comes to making some type of change, like in a major way, when it comes to a career, a life change, with even, I speak on the process I had to go through, when I lost my son
Mm,
through violence, and, just key things and transitions in my life where, I had to rely on God in such a different way than I had in the past. Just completely God, nothing and no one else but God, and allow Him to nurture me and to comfort me and to, provide what I needed in order to get back on track and to walk in the purpose He has for me. Because everything we go through, it's a purpose behind it. So
that's right. And, it
that's
really brings to mind, as you're talking about a couple of things, right? I know your book talks on the loss, right, of your son, and then you think about the loss, of a job, right? And so
yeah,
all that ties actually, as I'm thinking about it, into grief. And there are a lot of people that deal with grief, and they deal with it, in so many forms. So I can really see your book like really spanning across, right, those different atmospheres, because there's someone that's going to need, to hear your testimony. They're going to go through or have been through or are going through, right?
yeah,
What you've already gone through. And in some area, it can really help them, to really understand what it means to make God the CEO of their life. So I like that.
absolutely,
Definitely.
absolutely. If I
Yeah,
can help somebody, and just point them to God in
that's
all
right.
things. If I can do that, I have done my job, I feel.
You
So,
have, definitely. Yes. So thinking about, now you're at this point, you've already, did your first book, which was an anthology, which is always a great place to start. Now we have your second book that's been released, and you fully wrote this, right? This is your first book, by yourself. So what are some challenges that you faced during the writing process? And can you share how you overcame them?
yes, there were some difficulties. It took, I would say, almost a year, and because I wrote in phases, because
Mhm.
some seasons were more busier than others, and some were less
That's right.
busier. So, got to a point where I got super busy with family, and I think that was the biggest challenge. Helping out with family, and just in my own personal responsibilities and things like that.
I get it.
So what I did was I just stopped because I was just feeling so overwhelmed. So I just stopped, and I just asked God, please, God, show me where I can, make the time, or how I can make the time and get in this book done, because,
Mhm.
time started getting the best of me. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's already November. It's already 5 months in, and I only got to chapter 3. So when I asked him, God, he tends to respond quickly.
That's
So
right.
what
He
was
does.
going on after that was he was helping me make time. I asked him to arrange my schedule for me.
That's
And so
right.
he will wake me up at 5 o'clock in the morning because I had some things that appointments or things I needed to do at 9. Okay, you can wake up at 5 a.m. and start writing.
Mm,
And that's just whenever he would literally wake me up. Once in a while I'll set my time, my alarm clock, but he did most of the time woke me up at 5 or 6, where I would have time to get in a good 2 or 3 hours to write. And that's how it flowed. Or he would say, okay, you know what, maybe go into a different setting. I notice when I
mhm.
write, sometimes I like to be in a different setting or scenery while I do it. I would have go to Starbucks and write,
Oh,
or
yeah.
eat outside on the patio, or outside of Starbucks and write. Just he gave me some creative
But
things
that's
to do when
good.
it came to getting the book done.
That's right. And that's how God works too. It's
Yeah,
sometimes some things are just the atmosphere has to change. I
yeah.
do a lot of writing, blogs and books and etc.
Mhm.
So sometimes I've been in a parking lot at a grocery store, right? And then I'm on my cell phone, just if something come to mind, I love to use, my notes on my phone to write it. Or in my
Yes.
office or at the park, right? So I can definitely relate, with that. But it's good because when you have an idea, it's one thing to have the idea, but when you begin to implement it and then you see it come to fruition, it's nothing like it. So during
Nothing.
that process, was there a moment where you felt like giving up?
Well, there wasn't a moment at all where I
Hmm.
felt like giving up, but there were times where I would just literally be so tired, and I would say, "God, I don't even know when I'm going to be able to squeeze in this writing." I would just be so exhausted,
Yeah.
and that's when He would send me. Sometimes He use other people to help you, and I've had people around that same time after saying how exhausted I was, because He wants us to get our rest,
That's right.
but He also sent people to help, and they'll say how they carve out their schedule. When you carve out your time specifically for this or that and be intentional about it, more than likely you'll get it done. It's like a high percent rate that it will get done. So I had to
It will
carve
get
out my
done.
time for different things, because otherwise I would be spread so thin because of spur of the moment this or phone call
Mhm.
that'll change the whole trajectory of my day because I'm on the phone talking about this or that or working on this or that, instead of just staying and sticking with the schedule. So
That's right.
I've had some people, I was part of a group where it's a leadership group, and that was one of the things they talked about at that same time. Like I said, he will give you the answers.
He
He'll
will.
use people to give you the answers. So that's what they told us, to carve that time out on your schedule, be intentional about it, and stick to it. That way, you stay on task.
Wow. And it's really good. It's sort of like time blocking, right? You just blocking
Time
that time
blocking.
out. Yeah.
That's
And
exactly what the word they use.
yeah,
Yes.
it is. It's definitely time blocking. And I'm really big on that with some things, like in the mornings, I might time block. And so that means my phone has to go on do not disturb or whatever I would need to do, right? To make sure that I'm blocking out that time to be intentional. And so
Yeah.
let's talk about a little bit about your impact of becoming an author. I know that your book is, it's on pre-order and a lot of you may have already had people that started to purchase it. But can you share so far, like how has becoming an author actually impacted your life, whether it's been personally, spiritually, or professionally? Has it had any impact thus far?
Um, well, yes, we are in the pre-order stage right now, and I've been getting some orders in, which is great. And I think with that, I'm excited. I'm excited to tell people my story and to just kind of, tell people my testimony, because I see my book as a testimony. And with that being said, they'll be able to, you know, lean on God in the same way if they aren't already, or be inspired, in some kind of way, through, God's hand at work. Sometimes we go through situations where we would have never thought, or we never thought we would get through even.
Mhm.
And God, He comes through and He does whatever He needs to do, or He, feel is right to get us back, on track, and to, heal us, or,
Yes, yes.
strengthen us, and, guide us. So, yeah, so I'm very excited about being able to share that with an audience, and in that audience, I think will be inspired and will lean and look to God, just as I did.
Yeah.
God is their source, as God is my source.
That's right. I definitely believe so, And
Yeah.
with that, is there anything that has surprised you the most, about this journey so far? Like things that you may have not known about yourself or, just coming out of the shell or anything that may have surprised you so far?
Yes, actually, writing you especially when you're writing about your life, because my book is
Hmm.
about my life. When you're writing about your life, there's a lot of things that you think back on, and you can it makes sense on where you are today, how God led you, whatever He had, was with you on going on how many years ago. It makes sense. The steps that you had to take, the experiences you had to go through to get to where you are today. And
Hmm.
then, also we have things that we're going through today that's going to take us to where we're going to be in the future. So um, it showed me how to be intentional about the future, but
Hmm.
also reflect on the past, so that way, you know, I can allow it to resonate with me and how I am today, so that I may inspire other people through,
Hmm.
what God allowed me to go through, but also some things that He was able to, help me through.
Wow.
So I learned that a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about what God has done in my life and through my life.
Wow.
So yeah,
I
that
think
I
that's
didn't think
really
of.
good.
It forces you to think about it,
It
and
does.
to sit on it. Hmm.
And it's like you don't realize it until you start writing, and then you realize things. And it's like some things may come back to mind, right? It's like, I forgot about
Yeah.
that until you
Yes.
begin to really write it out. So that's the importance of writing. And that's something I'm going to be sharing soon, just with our listening audience for people that are writers, because there are so many benefits to writing, right? And it just brings such a release. And so, I can definitely see that, across this journey for you. So, one final question I do have, like, what advice would you give to someone who they may feel called to write, but they haven't started yet?
Okay. One thing I would say about that, when God, has ordained or called us to do something, there's nothing to think about. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to, scratch your head about. We just need to do it.
That's
We
right.
need to do it. And because there's a reason why. If He's
Hmm.
calling you to do something, there's a reason, there's a purpose in it. And
That's
one
right.
thing we will want to do is to fulfill the purpose that God
Hmm.
has for us. And if it means calling us to write and to write or to do whatever it may be, we need to do it so it can be fulfilled, and that purpose, can be, fulfilled, and everything that God has for you or whoever this purpose is for may be fulfilled here in the earth. So
Yeah.
one thing about me, I just want to do what God wants me to do, and I just want to always make Him proud. So
And that's really
that's
good. I mean, you have some
mhm.
people that are just simply afraid. So, would you have any advice for someone that may be battling fear or doubt, like doubting that they're actually called, to write?
Well, me, I'm actually, some people may not think that, but I'm very much an introvert. So I was
Mm.
thinking, me, like, you want me to do this? And you know
Yeah,
what? You have to do it with fear. Do it afraid.
that's right. Do it
You have
afraid.
to
I
do
like
it
that.
afraid.
Yeah.
Mhm. Because
And
after a while, you'll get used to it, and you'll get used to it and get comfortable with it. And we all have to start from somewhere. So
mhm,
do it afraid, and we'll let God do the rest. He'll handle
that's
the rest.
right.
Mhm.
That's actually pretty powerful. Thank you for sharing that. I was talking to my son a few days ago because I think he's a gifted communicator. I have whatever form God is going to use it. And so right now we're dealing with speech, he
Yeah.
just taking speech classes. And so he said that, he was shy. And I said, well, that means that you have to keep talking and you have to keep going around people, even do it afraid, because that's what's going to bring you out of that shell And that's what it reminds me of. Like you said, just do it, do it afraid. It doesn't matter. Just do
Yeah,
it, right? Um,
absolutely. That's wonderful. You're encouraging him like that. He's going to be wonderful and he's going
yes,
to be himself.
definitely.
Yeah.
That is so powerful. I definitely want to thank you today, for joining and just for sharing your heart, with the audience. So before we close, definitely just want to give you the opportunity to let our audience know where they can purchase your book, how can they connect with you, to just as an author, right? And as a business owner, right? And anything else you'd like to share with our listening audience.
Yes, the book is in pre-order, as we mentioned earlier, on Changing Lanes Enterprise, excuse me, with a Z in Enterprise. And that's online. That's a website that I have where you can take a look at, the business and my, profession, my background and my experiences, and the book itself, where it can be pre-ordered. And it will be also soon available on Amazon as well as England Spark in that outlet as well. So there's different ways to order now. So if you are interested, which I am sure you will be, please order. And I feel that you will get a great big deal out of the book. You will receive a lot and will be full by the book.
Definitely will. And I can attest to it, right? It's publishing the book, right? Not just because I helped publish it, but
Yeah.
it's like, I know that they'll definitely get a lot out of it. So,
Yeah.
Miss Buckingham, I definitely want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story and just reminding you that your journey is inspiring, right? And so I really believe it's going to encourage many listeners and readers. And then to our audience, I just want to thank everyone for tuning into the Prudent Podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who needs encouragement on their journey. And until next time, stay purposeful and keep pursuing what God has placed in you as a prudent writer. Have a blessed day.
Have a blessed day.